panel because here is where we discuss the next phase of GCCs, which has already arrived, that is Portfolio Hub and Transformation Hub. GCCs have, as you all know, have evolved considerably, considering they were just the outposts and now have become satellite centers to being Portfolio and Transformation Hub. In fact, NASSCOM report says that 18% of GCCs previously in the last year or in 2 years ago were satellite centers. Now 48% of them have moved on to become Portfolio and Transformation Hubs. So that is a great achievement. And in the panel here, we will talk about what are the inflection points that led to this evolution, and how are technologies like AI, ML, Gen AI and blockchain effectively is accelerating the transformation, and how leadership comes into picture and accelerates this transformation. Without further ado, first question I would like to pose to Ajaya. Ajaya, how have GCCs transitioned from satellite offices to becoming strategic portfolio and transformation hub? Where do you see the inflection point?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys can hear me. No.
Consul, please help with the mic.
Mic number 3. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so what we see is that before, like I've been here for several years, and before a decade ago, the decisions based on what kind of development should be done in India was a decision that was taken lower down the decision-making chain, right? Right now, these decisions are happening at the CXO level. So when somebody wants to start a center in India, the decision is made by the CEO and somebody else, and they decide what should be the profile of work that gets done out there. For example, recently I got a call from one of the workflow management companies in the DevOps space, which wants to be the next Atlassian. We're already close to $1 billion in revenue, but they don't have an office in India. The reason they want to come to India, and I spoke to one of the members on their leadership team, one of the CXO team, who had called me, and the reason they want to come here is because they want to make their product enterprise grade. They asked me, do you use it? I said, yes, I used it, but I don't think it's enterprise grade yet because so many features are lacking. And they want to do that. Building enterprise features is very hard, right? I mean, you literally have to double your development organization if you want to make that happen. What better place to do that than to actually do it in a place where you have abundance of talent? And they are looking at, okay, so these are those kind of features that I want to get done in India even before hiring a single engineer here. So that, I think, is the first inflection point, but I'll come back later with other examples.
Yes, and I have a question on that. Srinivas, may I hear from you, how have GCCs actually transitioned from outpost satellite center to now portfolio and transformation hub?
Yeah, I mean, just double clicking on what Ajaya said in terms of where the decision making happens. If you flip it in and look at it from a GCC point of view, when they're moving from satellite to portfolio or transformation hubs, some of the inflection points have to happen within the GCC, right? I mean, of course, you cannot generalize across all the GCCs that these are the 3-4 things that need to happen. But this is what I have seen, having done multiple GCCs. Some few things I feel GCCs will need to do and will need to continue to reiterate. The first is, I think, having deep functional process and customer knowledge, right? I think we heard about this, in the morning panels as well, that there is a need to kind of build that customer centricity, right? As GCCs mature, obviously they will get that, and there is that one point that takes them from where they are today to what might be the next space. The second one would be something to do with technology. And it's not just technologies that are already there in the product, but some of the newer technologies, right? And that's where GCCs have an advantage of having access to talent that can work on AI, Gen AI, some of the cutting edge technologies as well. So there is that inflection point. The third is, I would say, outcome-based innovation, where if GCCs take those calculated risks and are not afraid to fail, that is an inflection point that takes them up from one maturity level to the next. The last one would be around leadership development, because you're now growing up the value chain, right? Absolutely. You can no longer look at decision making being passed down, right? You should be in a position to take that. So that is a bigger inflection point that helps the GCCs to take that next step. Finally, I would say all of this has to be supported by strong executive sponsorship, like what Ajay mentioned. It has to come from the top.
Okay.
So that would be my take on that.
From your parentship, you mean?
Yes, from the parent organization.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Ashish, I would like to hear from you. What do you think are the key inflection points that enabled this shift? And what lessons have we learned along the way?
I've said all of them.
Do you want to add anything new?
It's going to be really tough.
Okay. Here's the mic.
Test. Can you hear me at the back?
Inter-GCC's collaboration.
Yeah. I'll probably try to get more specific, which
Yes.
is, and everyone talked about leadership. I think when you hire someone who has done this, let's say, in the US for your parent company, so the product owner or the engineering head for a certain competency or product line, if you can bring them to India, and that's what we did with in one of my previous lives, it just was a springboard. And it really got a lot of credibility built. It got, they attracted the right talent. So I think getting that one or two or three people who have been there, done it is critical. And I think the flip side is if you have the wrong leader, that's very dangerous. My learning is sometimes you have to be tough very quickly, very fast. So you invest in someone who you think is going to take you to the next level. If it doesn't work, it's not easy, but you have to shake hands fast.
Understood. So we are awaiting another panelist, Reena, and when she comes in, I'll ask her the question on AI ML. But let's move to Ambika. Ambika, I'd like to hear from you. What are some of the key trends you're seeing in how GCCs are structuring their portfolio and adopting emerging tech for end-to-end ownership?
So, building on what the fellow panelists have told, so there is a goal alignment that is happening between the parentship and the GCC. So, to do that effectively, a lot of these transformation hubs or innovation hubs that we call them, they are adopting AI ML into various process automation, whether it's creating product market fit, and that's happening all out of the GCCs now. So we have AI ML, we have the automation. So intelligence and automation first is the theme, key trend that we are observing. The next one is the cloud and the collaboration. So with cloud, you can effectively have teams and they can rapidly develop prototypes. And they can do that without waiting for that other team members located somewhere else to come and like do the deployment. So that's happening. Thirdly, like the GCCs we see are moving towards more of sustainability and governance and moving out of compliance. So there's green coding happening to reduce the carbon footprint. Then we are seeing data governance. And collaboration is not just like teams collaboration, even the platforms that we are seeing, like say DataIQ, the data science and ML platforms, Databricks, they already have embedded or their minimum hygiene to have that collaboration between various teams. Fourth, obviously cybersecurity and IP, which was like taking a back seat maybe 5 years back, but due to the digital era and the threats that we have. So cybersecurity is becoming critical. And IP management, because you are now creating innovative stuff here in the GCC, you need to make sure that that's not compromised. Finally, on talent management, because without talent, there's no GCC.
Absolutely.
So the roles, if we look till the third generation of GCCs or the second generation, they ended up at a people manager level. So you finally end up actually managing the leaves on a Valentine Day of your subordinates.
Very timely.
But that was possibly not exciting to people.
Yeah.
So a lot of my friends who continue to be in the technology path, they're not excited with that. The new GCCs obviously give them the scope to like work on like specialized areas, so data architects, tech architects, and they are also compensated accordingly. Otherwise, like you end up being a project manager or a people manager. So those are the key trends that we can see.
So it's largely still employee centric, I presume.
Employee centric plus a lot of it has to do with the like the evolution of technology and the GCC and the parentship are actually embracing the technology together. So it is not that they have first moved from the time actually when I was coding. So we had our US counterparts, they knew the databases and we were like learning it. But here the learning is happening at the same time.
Same pace. And that has been also a major differentiator. Thank you so much, Ambika. Reena, welcome. And we were awaiting you because we wanted to pose a very important question. So, how technologies, especially technologies like AI, ML, or say blockchain, are accelerating this transformation of GCCs from mere outposts to transformation and portfolio hubs, and helping in creating some of the very particularly differentiated capabilities. Do you want a mic?
Yeah, thank you. This is clear?
Yeah.
Very popular technologies, AI, ML, predictive, agentic AI now,
Yes.
blockchain, all of that you mentioned. But essentially, it leads back to what's in it for the enterprise. So hyper personalization, so your customer experiences. We always had a lot of data. We churned it before, but you can churn it faster, better, and getting better every day. You can use technology to do repetitive work that people were doing before and use their skills elsewhere. And skills is a massive shortage with all the GCCs is, with the amount we are consuming in the services space. Security with blockchain, so you can have, secure transactions, faster decision making. So essentially it comes back to business outcomes. There will be new technologies, I'm sure, again tomorrow. That is the way of our industry. But all of it leads back to much, much better customer experience. And for leaders, decision making, we can have, better data for decision making. So faster, more appropriate decision making, be it global, local, GCC, or any enterprise.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Reena. And Srinivas, I'll now come to you again. So, as GCCs take on full cycle ownership from say ideation to execution, what are some of the lesser known operational or governance or cultural shifts that organizations must make that will help them unlock some of the real business impact?
Okay. I don't know if what I'm going to say will be lesser known, but I'll definitely talk about it from the context of Upland, and how we have kind of grown over the last 3 years. We started off as a satellite kind of a setup, and then now we are somewhere in between satellite and portfolio with some aspects of the business in complete portfolio mode, right? So I'll probably share a little bit of what I've seen as those inflection points. And this question is very pertinent to us because Upland, in India and in global, we are a fully remote GCC, right? We don't have an office. We don't have an office in India. All of us are working from home. We are around 180 people. We're planning to grow up to 200 and then probably scale beyond that. So when we started the setup, we said, okay, if we have to be in this mode, right, and we have to continue to scale and operate like a GCC, what should be some of the things that we should really take cognizance of, right? So the first thing that comes to my mind is you have to hire the right people, right? I think a lot of us give it not a lot of importance. We just maybe give it to some third party and assume that it gets done. You probably don't give them the right script. You probably don't tell them what to say. And that's where the ball starts dropping, right? So you have to take that initial time to help understand what is it that you want to be told about in the market. So to me, that's a very, very important step. So hire the right people. Now, whether this is something that you want to go from, hiring somebody from lateral, or if you're expanding your operation, whether you want to move somebody internally up, it doesn't matter. But hiring is a big step, right? So that's the first one. The second one I would say, which is very, very important, is how do you create your career paths, leadership development, and your growth within the organization, right? Now, ultimately, everybody wants to know, a year or 2 years down the line, what's my next step, right? And what is it that you're going to give me as an option, right? So you have to be very clear right from day one on how somebody's path grows within the system. And if it's not going to grow beyond a particular point, let's be honest, right? You don't need to show them a picture that does not exist, right? So being honest, being very clear, being practical about how somebody can grow within the system saves you a ton of pain, down the line. Now, the third one is all around, what are some of your people-related policies that need to be changed so that, you're able to adapt to this newer way of, portfolio and, transformative part of the house. So When I look at it from an upland perspective, we focused a lot on flexibility, right? We said, we don't want you to log in at 9, we don't want you to log in at 10, choose your time, right? So we have teams that come in at, in the afternoon, they work till late night, teams that start in the morning, wrap up in the afternoon, doesn't matter, right? We are completely outcome focused. So we shifted our model to saying that, okay, if you're getting things done, that's all that matters. Where you're getting it done, how you're getting it done, doesn't matter, right? So that was one big shift, that we underwent, which many people don't give a lot of importance to, right? The second one is end of the day, everybody wants to know, okay, how am I going to be, not compensated but rewarded for my efforts,
Okay.
right? So you have to have a very strong R&R sort of a policy that ties somebody's work to the values of the organization. It's not just appreciation, but it's about not calling out the effort, but tying it down to something that your organization truly believes in, right? And if you call that out, people will naturally realize that, okay, that is something that I can replicate.
Yeah.
And the last one is we have been very, very focused on diversity. We want to make sure that we get that mix, really strong. So we completely focus on diversity-based hiring. And in a remote model, it's worked really well for us. A lot of returning mothers who want to come and work for us. A lot of people who have aged parents that they want to take care of. So we're completely open to train them, completely open to, bring them on board. And I'll, close by one last point, which I didn't, hear across many sessions. Everybody's talking technology, Gen AI, but nobody's talking about well-being, right? End of the day, you're putting in 12, 14, 16, 18 hours of work, but how much of your time actually goes into focusing on well-being and mental wellness of people? Because if people are burnt out, your productivity conversation is of no use, right? So I would say you have to make those fundamental shifts. Think about as you grow in portfolio and transformation, because more and more onus is now on you. So you have to take care of your people. You have to take care of your basics, right? So that would be my take on that.
Thank you so much. It's quite detailed, and you're right about the wellness part as well, which gives us the feedback to specifically ask these questions. But you said something about defining the career path. So there's no need to answer that question in your interview, right? Where do you see yourselves 5 years down the line? You answer it for them.
No, we actually, we don't ask them that question, but we focus a lot on behavioral questions,
Okay.
right? We ask them, give us instances where you have, helped somebody within your organization grow. And if they dilly-dally around it, you know that it's not, it's something that's being cooked up on the spot,
If you know, you know.
right? If you know, you will definitely tell it.
Thank you so much, Srinivas. Ajay, coming to you. So, what are some of the lesser known challenges, or particularly, are there any hurdles unique to Indian GCCs? You can talk about, say, talent retention or innovation scaling, any regulatory barriers. So, what are these challenges that are unique to Indian ecosystem?
Okay, so when I started Pure in 2022 January, uh, I think there is this notion that as a young company, you're starting off, you hire, like, India is full of young talent. That's the worst thing to do. I made sure I hired in the first year people with enormous amounts of experience.
Okay.
People who have done this systems work 4 times in their careers before they come into Pure and do the same. Because what is a GCC really, well, what is your company really looking for? They're really looking for the realization of the promise, right? Like, so there is this notion in Bay Area that even while I was there, culturally and technologically, the nearest point to San Francisco Bay Area is Bangalore, right? I think, how do you realize that? You realize that by proving what you can deliver, right? And that's not going to happen if you kind of hire a bunch of freshers or people with 7, 8 years of experience. You really need to hire the best available. So when I started, I knew by name 10 people I really wanted in the company. 10 senior technical director level architects who I really wanted, who individually could code over 10,000 lines of C++ pristine code every week, and basically build a strong system. And these guys came on board, and they delivered miracles in about a year. And that set us up for huge success and the realization. So first is make sure that don't put unnecessary pressures on yourself as Indian GCC, that you got to be extremely frugal and all of those kind of stuff, right? Like if you're not being asked to be that, right? So don't try to overachieve those goals, right? So The way we went about is on the first year, there was not a whole lot of salary difference between the sites. I mean, these things are going to happen over time, right? So don't focus on that. Focus on the reason why you came to India. You came here because you wanted high caliber talent, high caliber outcomes. That's one. Secondly, don't make all problems your problems, right? Like, sometimes Indian GCCs have this thing about location preferences and running a facility. The GCC leader is never compensated or graded based on how nice the office is or how frugal it's been built on and stuff like that, right? I think because after all, the facilities cost is a fraction of the overall cost of the employee. So, so those are not the things that we focused on. In my own personal experience, we stay in the heart of the city. We have a third-party managed office. We don't really need to kind of worry about it, but it's our office, right? But we only focused on hiring and delivering. So reduce overheads, focus on tech, focus on talent. And I would say that these are a couple of things.
Outcome based, as Srinivas also mentioned. Perfect. So coming to you, Ambika, as GCCs expand their scope, what are some of the emerging tech roles which are driving this innovation and transformation? Any job roles that you're seeing within this AI/ML domain, or anything, say cybersecurity, cloud?
Yeah. So there are some obvious roles because of the tech wave, like the AI engineers, ML engineers, data science engineers. But at ProTech, where we are working with multiple GCCs, we are seeing the need of research scientists. Because you need to bring academic research, especially in the AI domain, into business outcomes, to business use cases. So research scientist is something unique that I am seeing, especially from BFSI and manufacturing in the last 1 year. Cybersecurity side, I would tell we are looking at like ethical hackers, because it's critical to make sure that you just are not locking the main door, but you are making sure that your balcony door is also closed when you are doing cybersecurity. Then the chief security officer, that's a very senior role, somebody who can holistically look at cybersecurity. For BFSI, automation part and product engineering, plant maintenance, not BFSI, sorry, manufacturing. There we are seeing a combination need. So people who have skills, say in computer vision, along with IoT skills, who can make sense of the IoT sensor data and then build models on top of that. So this is very similar to what we saw during the digital transformation wave. So we had full stack developers. So this is a combination skill that we are seeing. And then we have no code, low code platform people, we have RPA people. So those are mostly the skills that we are seeing, at least in the last 2 years. Out of that, the research scientist obviously is something new and which we are seeing coming towards.
Thank you, Amika. Ashish, what skills or leadership qualities do you believe are needed to manage end-to-end transformation projects?
Wow. I mean, you need leadership skills, and leadership skills, there's a variety of attributes.
Okay.
I think if I look at, especially if you look at teams that are going to take accountability for product lines or for capabilities or for, an end-to-end element, I think you've almost got to look at it as, what does your mothership do in these areas? And I think one is the interactions you have with other offices around the world, because as you own something, you're going to have team members around the world. And so I think the cultural ability to really interact and engage culturally, to understand the nuances of how someone who gets feedback in Italy versus someone who takes feedback in the US, very different. And I think leadership qualities are needed to kind of assess and manage that cultural difference. Second is sort of a soft skill, but when you take ownership of a product or a P&L or whatever you want to call it, before GCCs as outposts could protect themselves by saying, oh, I just delivered something and it went to someone who sent it to someone, and then it went to the product owner in New York. And when something went wrong, the product owner got all the heat. But now if you own something, people are going to call you and say, hey, your platform failed, right? We had a loyalty platform. Our loyalty head lived or worked in the GCC in India. When there was a point in time when the product sort of kind of failed and people couldn't redeem their points. That's what our software does. and you have angry customers calling and you're losing millions of dollars. So the ability to understand what ownership means and to be assertive, to understand and kind of really understand what ownership means. I think those are soft skills that have to be really, really brought. And I think for me, the final piece is governance and influence. So you need leaders who are going to be talking to the business, because the business units are now going to see you as their product owner. You're going to have to bring the CIOs and the CTOs. And so being adaptable at governance and creating the right boards, reporting, all of that stuff, I think those are things that leaders are going to have to start really doing. So I think I look at it from those three lenses.
Noted. Noted, Ashish. Thank you. Reena, may I hear from you what skills or leadership capabilities are needed for end-to-end project management?
Sure. Ashish covered it really well. I think a lot of the skills are similar. So end-to-end ownership, ability to align across geographies, and even if decisions are being made here, you need to be able to, translate what it is they want from you eventually as a business unit. Agility, of course, yeah, and of course, the ability to upskill quickly, change quickly, because there's so much going on. How quickly can you pivot? And I know this is a common leadership ask, but it's really something one needs to cultivate constantly. Experiment, because we are no longer, cost saving centers. We are value delivery centers out of India. So maybe try something new. How do you differentiate? So you should have the ability to experiment with something, or be brave enough to take ownership, like he clearly said. It makes all the difference.
Agility and soft skills, as he said, also such underrated skills. Okay, so shall we do a lightning round? We have 1 more minute. We'll do a lightning round quick. One question common to all panelists. We'll begin with you, Reena. What's the most underrated factor that determines whether a GCC successfully evolves into a true transformation hub? Quick answer.
So I think leadership buy-in and cultural buy-in. You can change all the technology in the world, but if it's not top down and everyone's not owning it, it's not going to happen. How much ever you invest.
Noted. Srinivas?
Yeah, just a different take on that same answer. I think it boils down to people, and hiring the right people. I get very worried when I see marketing statements like build 1,000-member GCC in 3 months, right? I mean, it's we don't know. I mean, if Ajay hadn't got those 12 people, I mean, where would he be? I think that's the key. So get the right people, focus on that. Everything else will fall in place.
Anyway, what's that term? 20% deliver the 80% of something.
It's 80-20 rule. I mean, you can apply it to anything.
Okay. Ambika?
For me, it is the tacit knowledge that is growing. Our engineers today look at lot of social media videos of products and services. When we started the career, we never had the chance to even experience those products and services. But today, that is creating the stickiness, because if you know the problems or the gaps in that, you really can transform, you can innovate. So the tacit knowledge is critical, and that's growing at a rapid pace, especially for India. It is growing at a very good pace.
Thank you so much. Ajay?
Yeah, my take is don't make your GCC extremely exclusive. Like it's not an India GCC. It has to be a center or an office, just like your headquarters or any other part of the world, so that it gets included in part of everything. So that's going to be critical for acceptance and growth, and also being that first citizen, right? Like,
Okay, so don't make it more exclusive. Okay.
Yeah. So for example, like just as I have teams reporting to me in the US, and managers in the US have teams reporting to me, I also have managers that report to me who have their teams in the US and vice versa.
Okay.
So it's just another office that's around the globe, and it's not a secluded India center that is separate.
Well integrated.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Ashish?
I'll take a different look at this question. I would say, what's the most overrated reason for
Not becoming a transformation.
Yeah, or no, for becoming a transformation hub? I think it's actually a flip of what you're hearing here. Is people saying you need engineering excellence, you need the best PhDs, you need to be putting out 1,000 patents. It's not going to get you anywhere. You can have it. It's actually a table stake thing now. It's all the things you heard over here that are very underrated, and you got to focus on those.
Noted, Ashish. Thank you so much. And may I thank the panelists. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights. It's been lovely hearing from you. And may your tribe grow. May more JCCs become transformation and portfolio hub. And may it contribute more to the GDP. Thank you so much. You've been a lovely audience. Didima, over to you.